Welcome to another episode of This Modern Mystic. And today we wanted to touch on the topic of over apologizing and what that is communicating.
So a lot of us have the habit of saying, oh, sorry. And even we're saying sorry when that really wasn't our fault, when it wasn't necessary to say sorry, when something even had nothing to do with us, right? So let's dig into that a little bit. Why are we doing that?
Yes. So the reason we're talking about this is that when we're transforming or changing who we are, it's good to be aware of the little nuances. And this is something that happens on a subconscious level and something that I used to do a lot. And now I consciously work not to do. And the reason being is that what you're communicating is that you're in the wrong or that you're not worthy or what you're saying isn't worthy or what you're doing isn't worthy compared to that other person. Like they are more important than you are. And that's not something that you want to communicate. You should always be the most important person in your eyes. Forget what anybody else has taught you, self-sacrificing yourself for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
You're no good to anybody. And how could you find any importance in anybody else if you don't even understand what that feels like for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So when you're apologizing all the time for things that you've done, it's almost from a victim stance or from a victim position, maybe something like that,
Mm-hmm.
where you're coming from it at a lower point. Now, don't get me wrong, when you apologize for something because you are genuinely empathetic for how your behavior has affected somebody or your decision has affected somebody, that's a completely different thing.
Mm-hmm.
That's empathy, where this is more of oh, I don't know, I don't even know how to do it. It's more of really, it's an unworthiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's a kind of a less than type of always apologize. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't mean that. I'm sorry. I didn't. You know what I'm talking about. You've seen
Mm-hmm.
it. You've probably done it. Especially if you're watching this, it's probably a big trigger for you. And if you want to start not doing this, the first thing you got to do, like we say in the Rid Wave, you recognize.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize that this is something that you do and the core place that it's coming from. And when you recognize and you're able to identify what that core feeling is and identify that's something that you no longer want to represent who you are and your identity, and then you decide to do something different, decide on the course of action.
And in case you're like, well, I don't see the problem in that, like, let's help you identify some of those reasons why you don't want to apologize all the time. One of the things is that you're communicating, like he said, a sense of missive
Subpar.
or subpar to somebody else. And that does not communicate confidence or a sense of well-being in yourself. When we sometimes learn to position ourselves below others, it's usually as a sense of like, well, I'll let the dominant person, I'll let them speak, I'll let their feelings be more valid than mine. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that was a survival tactic for you at
Survival.
some time,
Yep.
but it's not going to help you, like, say, get that new job that you want. It's not going to help you be seen if somebody else keeps stealing your ideas in the workplace, or if you have to get your own gigs for your own business. It's not going to help you if you're carrying around this essence of being superior. There's something submissive. Sorry, that's the word I was looking for. Submissive to everyone else all of the time. Being able to be a good business person or whatnot is really about being able to negotiate and have confidence. Like, hey, I deserve to be at the table too. Like, I deserve to be in this room. I deserve to, have this job or take this creative leap in my business or whatever it is that you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And it also goes to parenting too. Like, if we are communicating submissiveness to our children or even our pets, like, what does that do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are just some examples of like why it's important. And so you can definitely feel into your own examples and really sit with that and be like, okay, what, in certain scenarios, why was I submissive? But then also, like, what did that lose me?
Yeah, I'd like to what you brought up there about maybe that's a form of behavior that you did to protect yourself, survival. And I think everything comes down to this is that these behaviors that we've learned, right? We've learned in order to ease pressure or stress or perceived dangers in our childhood or growing up, right? And then it gets larger and grows into being sorry for everything you've done because you're in the way of everybody else, right?
Hmm.
So if you lived in a household where the parents don't even have to be abusive. It just has to be where maybe you're more of an introvert and maybe they're more of an extroverted, or they have a more powerful, or I shouldn't say powerful, more domineering characteristics than you
Hmm.
do. And so then their loudness, or I'm kind of that way. Their loudness or abrasiveness kind of puts you down a little bit, and you're kind of, oh, sorry, you know what I mean? And some of it ain't even because of them. It ain't even a sorry to them that you did anything wrong to them. It's almost like, I'm sorry I even brought that whole situation to bear. You know what I mean? Like,
Hmm.
I'd rather have not. Sorry about that. Kind of a
Hmm.
thing that grows into what can grow into something where you are being submissive to people as you grow older, where the way that you feel, the way that you stand. And all in all, you have something to give to, you know what I mean? You have something to offer.
Hmm.
And just because you're quieter or you don't want to, you do have something to share, and you should be able
Hmm.
to share that. And maybe if we share this little over apologizing, being over sorry about things, that we're hoping that maybe it'll free you up to share some more of yourself to the world, especially if you feel the need to express that.
Yeah, because that's what we do here at the Modern Mystic. Remember, we are here to help teach the things that will help you be more connected to yourself in order to be more expansive in your life. And so, when you believe in your own value, when you believe that your feelings matter and when your opinions matter, and that shifts everything. You don't have to feel guilty for expressing how you felt about something or bringing up a concern to your partner or to a coworker. You don't have to second guess yourself. And this communicates that you value who you are and that you command this certain respect and honoring of who you are, right? and
Mhm.
and the thing is like if we have this value, then we're also able to also let somebody else be that way, and we give space
Yeah.
for other people to have their value. And so, really, it is one of those things again where it's like we heal ourselves, we heal our world, right? We heal our community by
Mhm.
healing ourselves.
People only value you as much as you value yourself.
Hmm.
Like, as much as you communicate your own value for yourself, that's how much people value you.
You teach people how to treat you. There's
Yeah.
another way that they
You,
say that.
yeah, you teach people how to treat you.
Hmm.
So if you've been going through life over apologizing and you're like, oh God, why did I say sorry again? This is something that can be worked out. It
Hmm.
can be teased out of your behavior. And it's just a perspective change, and then a behavioral or repetitive behavioral change. You got to recognize it, the red wave, recognize it, identify it, and then decide to do something different. Over and
Hmm.
over again, recognize it, identify it, decide to do something different
Hmm.
every time.
It's a good point.
Yeah.
It's a behavior, it's a skill. So we don't have to take it personally. We don't have to be like, oh, I'm so flawed, or I'm so weak, or I'm so whatever, right? Like again, those are the stories that we tell ourselves that perpetuate that personality trait. But you can change it and you can rewire your system.
Now, I used to do this because the way that I grew up, I felt like I was always in the wrong. I was told I was always in the wrong for a lot of things, for a lot, even if I wasn't in the wrong. So I had to apologize for a lot of things that I didn't do. And one time, a friend of mine, Jesse Sperry, if you ever watched this, you were the guy that told me. Older friend of ours, Franz, told him, and he was like, why do you say sorry all the time? Like, you're not sorry. I mean, if anything, just start saying I apologize. But sorry has two different meanings. Sorry to apologize, or sorry as in you're a sorry POS. So then when you're saying it all the time on a subconscious level, there are these two definitions that it carries. And therefore, when you use the I am proclamation of something, then that's what you're saying about yourself. And he told me about that, and I was like, damn, I don't want to be a sorry motherfucker. I'm not. What we were doing back in those days, you can't be weak, like it's not a good thing to be weak. And that communicated weakness. As I developed in my understanding of life, I understood more that it didn't carry like the confidence in myself when I continued to apologize for everything I did. And sometimes the other thing that I felt about it too is when I apologized is I wasn't able to, what do you call it? I wasn't able to correct the thing I was apologizing for because I was always sorry about everything. Like I wasn't capable of doing things correctly because I'm always apologizing for being in somebody's way or for interrupting somebody or for, you know what I mean? There's always something you could be apologizing for. That adjustment in my behavior never happened because I was so inundated with things that weren't up to par with, in my own head, weren't up to par with how I wanted to be. And so it was the acknowledgement of these things. It took a friend of mine to say, hey man, you should really quit saying sorry because you're not sorry, bro. Like you're not that way. You're a better human being than a sorry human being. And so try using a different word. And I switched it to apologize. And then after that, I quit apologizing so much for things. And I started being aware of my behavior that would elicit those apologies. And that's what I started changing instead of regurgitating my apologies all the time.
Yeah, in a sense, it does free you up to be able to then go into that self reflection, which is the biggest skill, or one of the biggest skills we teach here, is how to self reflect without the guilt and the shame and be like, okay, well, if I keep apologizing for this, then it keeps happening.
Mm-hmm.
Then what am I doing to participate in it still? And how am I still doing this thing, even though maybe my partner's already said, we've already talked about it 100 times and it's hurt them and I already know that, but I'm not changing my behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can really reflect on, well, why does this keep happening? And when
Mm-hmm.
we say, oh, I'm sorry, it's like that doesn't negate the fact that you did what you did, right? So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I know you've said that before. It's like I just want the change behavior.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's all growth and evolution in who you are, and some people might not be there yet where they're ready to change that aspect of themselves. Some people might not even notice that they do it, but it's something that I know I had an issue with for a long time, and it took me a long time to get over it. So I almost think it's a maturity thing as you develop as a human being, and maybe it's also depending on who you were raised by. I was raised in a very religious home where we went to church all the time, whatever, whatever. And, and I learned you had to prostrate yourself to God and you were not worthy. You are nothing but a piece of
Sinning.
dust on the boot of God's shoe. Like, so then why wouldn't I think that I wasn't worthy on top of other things that were going on in my home and where I came from, which is a whole different story. But it really did resonate with me when he told me, like, bro, you're not sorry. Just in general, a self-esteem thing. It was a self-esteem thing.
Yeah, and then it could be the skill, the lack of the skill as well, that I don't know how to stand up for myself. Like I don't know what that looks like. I don't know how to confidently stand up for myself because for me, in my experience, I was always around people who were a lot, like he said, very domineering. If I were to say something, then that person would get louder or meaner and more abrasive about it, and then I would back down. So I had learned, well, I can maybe say it this far, but I can't take it any farther. Or even if I do speak up for myself, it's not going to go anywhere. So it was easier just to be like submissive, right? But really, so it's not that I didn't believe in myself because I did, but it was that I didn't have the skills to be confident in who I am despite that kickback that I would get. So
Mm,
really, we also have to decide not to take that personally. So like, you can express who you are and what you want to be in the world, and people also have the right to not agree with that. And we, as empaths or sensitive beings, we can't take that personally, and that's another skill of maybe maturity, but
mhm,
of just trusting in who you are and knowing like, okay, when I speak my truth, I'm going to speak it and that's it. And whether or not that person agrees or says something lovely and flowery back to me, even if they don't, right? I'm still going to believe in what I said and I'm going to feel certain about who I am. And that
Hmm.
does get easier with age, but it can be worked on now because you obviously don't want to wait till you're 40, 50 to really maybe make those career jumps or whatnot, or to have a really successful relationship with your partner. So I hope that this helped you.
Yeah.
Was there anything else?
No, this is good. This is
Yeah.
good. I hope you guys. I do hope it helps people because when I got to this point, I felt stronger in myself. Like you said, a lot confident in myself, and that's a
Mhm.
lot better feeling than feeling like you're at the whim of the world.
All
But
right, so go
thank
be
you.
your own guru
Yeah, be your own
and
guru.
let us know in the comments what was helpful here, and we'll talk to you next time.
Peace.